Ari Tulla, welcome to the Pain and Performance Podcast, my man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You've got such an interesting story of like your story arc of getting into health. Tell us where your, I guess, obsession with some of this stuff started.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fun story and a kind of sad story as well, like many of us have. That I'm a tech entrepreneur. I'm a technologist by training. I've been dabbling with computers since I was barely able to walk. My dad, gave me a gift when I was 6, and it was first PC, the 086 computer. You could do nothing with them except maybe play games and whatnot. So that got me going with the tech. But as many health entrepreneurs or people who work in healthcare today, we have a reason that is fundamentally driving our life. And for me, it has been the health struggles we have had in my family. My wife had a thyroid tumor 20 plus years ago. She was a healthy athlete, and that removal of the partial thyroid led into autoimmune diseases. Many of these unknowns we don't know what to do about, and that got me thinking. First of all, mortality. You are 22 years old. You found the love of your life, and you basically need to think about these things. Most people think about drinking and the party. And we had to think about the real stuff, and that changed my life. I mean, it made me think about like there's going to be mortality. Life is finite on this planet, and what do we do today will have an impact on the years to come. Thinking about your health, exercise, recovery, and nutrition. So that was the beginning for me, and it took us many years to finally get pregnant. A lot of drama along the way. And now, after 20 years of different health struggles, we have 2 beautiful, healthy kids who are thriving, and life is wonderful. But it made me a different person, and I'm very deeply passionate about building companies, investing companies that are helping us live better lives.
Yeah,
Most people work on stuff that they don't care. I mean, I want to work on stuff I care, and I can also impact people in a positive way.
Yeah, listening to your journey through kind of entrepreneurship and how we can marry that up with building something that is very successful, but that helps. It's successful because it helps a lot of people, not in spite of it. And I think that's after my own heart, is like, how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? I think that starts with, what are you really trying to do? If you're really trying to help a lot of people, you make different decisions than if you're trying to make the most money possible, or you're trying to build the biggest business possible. Those may happen anyway, right? If we help a lot of people in the right way. But listening to how we get into these fields, it always interests me, because we can read all the right stuff, we can read all the research, we can study all the books, but that's not the most effective teacher. When it's in our life, we're gonna learn that on a different level, and we're gonna be inspired on a different level than if this is something that's interesting to me. Where were y'all whenever you were having the health struggle? Were y'all in the US?
I'm from Finland. That's why I speak funny, and I have a funny name. And that's why I built companies with funny names as well. my latest company is called Elo, Elo. Elo in Finnish means life, so it's a kind of nice name for a company that helps people to thrive. But yeah, we were in Finland, and I'm more being from the socialized medicine in a way. Finland has a healthcare system run by government mainly, where you go to a doctor, you will be given care for free. And about 15 years ago, I moved to Silicon Valley to build a gaming department for Nokia. And I saw this new world where, I have the gold-plated executive insurance plan. I can go to any doctor I want for free. And then I have a million choices. I had no idea who to go to. We saw 50 different doctors before we found one that could help us. I was like, wow, that's very different. And I think, your point is really good, that the deeper you go into one area of interest or science or a topic, the more difficult it is for you to see the wide world around you. You're gonna go into the forest and you are looking at the trees, you don't see the whole forest. Concept is real. And I mean, it's always unique when you are an outsider. And I've been building, I think, 6 different businesses in the last 20 years. And every time I started, I was an outsider. And I realized a long time ago that being outsider and having the beginner mind, the mind of a child, asking the silly questions, not accepting the status quo, is the most important single factor for you to seeing the solutions that other people might not see. And if you are in one trend for 20, 30, 40 years, you are so deeply ingrained into the ways of working and the thinking that you don't see the other things. And what I do living, and what I have done for living for a long time, I'm not the best developer or coder, I barely can code anymore. I'm not the doctor, I'm not the dietitian, I'm not the scientist even. What I do well is basically look around me, ask questions, and then try to combine the good ideas from different places into a new type of a thing. Could be a company, could be a product, whatever. But that's kind of what I do, and I think that's been super fun. And it's hard because even every time I go deeper into any company or any product or project, I become also stifled by the fact that I know too much. I'm like, oh, this is so hard to do. I can't do this anymore. We are in a dead end. And then we hire somebody new and they come in and they're like, well, you can take this and put it there and build the Legos differently and it becomes amazing. So that's just the funny thing how we are as a human mind. We are limited in a way.
It's so fascinating. I work with other healthcare companies and doctors in, just kind of improving their patient experience. And you can always tell by the quality of their questions where they're at. Like are you even asking the right question? And a lot of times we're not in healthcare. I think we've been, especially people who are here, who are in America and have stayed here, we've been so entrenched in this system that it's hard for us to even think that there's another way. Most of my postdoctoral education was abroad, and I think that's the best thing I've ever done because you saw places that did things almost completely backwards from what we do here, and yet people were healthier, they had less chronic pain, the conversations at the doctor office was different, they used less medications, and you're like, well, hang on a second, who's right, who's wrong here? And your concept of using food as medicine, and I'd love to kind of dive into that. That's much more prevalent in other countries because in a lot of ways, like in socialized medicine, what are you trying to do? You're trying to start with the cheapest, most effective option first, and then let that trickle down. Well, telling somebody to change their diet and lifestyle, they're already buying food. They're just changing what they're doing. They're at the doctor. They don't have to buy anything. The government doesn't have to spend money on anything. Of course, a whole other conversation is there a perfect healthcare system that actually gets people healthier? But that's the best place to start in a lot of ways from an effectiveness and a financial standpoint. When y'all were going through the journey with your wife, when did y'all start to notice that maybe it wasn't a medication or something like that? Maybe it was going to be like lifestyle and food.
I think we were super healthy and young, and being young is giving you a lot of leeway because you can do almost anything you want at the young age and you'll be fine. Don't use all the drugs, but maybe some are fine at the young age. Not that when you are 80, you will die likely immediately. So in our case, the challenge really was that we were proposed and medicated, or my wife was medicated with some medications, made it very difficult or impossible to get pregnant. So you kind of have the medication will impact other things that will impact then something that you want to do in your life. And that was, of course, a big issue. I mean, maybe the condition also impacted, but the medication amplified the impact to change our life trajectory. And we didn't take that as a given. We were like, what? I mean, that can't be the case. I mean, you found your love of life, and you want to reproduce. That's what we are here to do. I mean, if you think about Darwinian ways, the only thing we are here is really to reproduce, and we are trying to do that if we can. And we basically, started to think about like what could we, not do the medication, or what could we do. And autoimmune diseases are now a lot more known about than they were 20 years ago. And of course, awfully a lot about this as being the pain specialist, because pain, of course, is a lot about inflammation, and a lot of the pain is actually in your brain, not in. There's no real pain. It's often it's chronic pain in your mind. But in our case, we started to look around, and inflammation became this topic that we realized is a big deal. And over many years, we had people helping us, guiding us, and I think 15, 17 years ago, somebody told us about low carb type diet, like a keto type of diet, that basically usually helps to lower inflammation, and that did work for us, and that opened up a new avenue that you can actually get rid of medication and stuff like that. So the medication was kind of the amplification for us. But I mean, I'm by no means against science or any medication or vaccines and stuff like that. I'm all pro. I'm just thinking that we are now living in a world where we go to the doctor's office and we are like, oh, give me a pill. And the person might be 450 pounds heavy and eating, everything that they eat is hyper-processed food and unhealthy, killing them. And the doctor is giving them the pill without even lecturing about other stuff. Yeah. So it's not about the doctor or the caregiver helping us. It's about us making the decision to take care of ourselves and becoming the CEO, picking up from the bootstraps. That's what we have to do as human beings. There's nobody who can help you or will help you. It's your decision in the end. And I mean, we are talking about, like obesity, of course, being the massive issue in all of this. And I'm really unhappy about the current discussion, because we are in a way normalizing obesity. So we are changing the world to accommodate people who are very big, which is totally fine to do. But at the same time, we are then shaming people who are obese, and we are making them feel bad about themselves. Because obesity is not about decision that you made, it's really the system around you got you lured into a world where you became sick. I mean, a lot of it's an eating disorder, it's a sickness. We have to help it much more than saying people, calories in, calories out, or eat more kale. I mean, that's not going to work. We have to do like a full-on intervention from the brain, mindfulness to, behavior change. And like you said, changing behavior, that's most difficult thing in the world. Like, how many of us in January, again, we're going to buy a pass to the gym, or we buy the Peloton, and then, 2 months later, there's like cobwebs, we need to take away from the things. That just happens to almost everybody. We are weak in that way.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it has gotten so entrenched in healthcare that we think that taking a pill changes our chemistry to a bigger degree than changing sleep, than changing the food that you put in your body every day, than changing the activity that you do every day. You're like, if you skip over those three to try and take a pill to correct the chemistry and the function inside your body, you're skipping over like the Grand Canyon of interventions to get like over the little bitty stream that can affect you. It's like we're missing the big majority of what can actually change our health, change our life, change our chemistry, to try and get these little 1%, 2%, 3% changes. And how do we fix that though? How do we get past that?
It's tough because I think we know, most of us, we know that, what should we do. And I think many times if we had a mom, the mom told us already that, eat well, move enough, and, sleep. That's all we need to do to stay healthy. And I think the moms are usually right. And they were right at that. And I'm doubling with my son. We're building these small rockets, and I'm teaching, he's 7 years old. I'm teaching him about, payload. You have an engine that has certain payload. There's a weight of the rocket, and then you can put more stuff into it. So maybe the payload is like half a pound with the rocket. And the same thing in a way applies, in my opinion, a bit on the medication, supplements, and all these things. Because if you think about, you take all the food you eat in a day, you probably eat maybe 2 pounds of food or 3 pounds of food a day. You maybe drink, half a gallon of water or liquid. That's kind of the payload of stuff you put in you. And then you think about that you eat the one pill that weighs, 2 grams or 1 gram. You think that pill will be more impact than, gallons and pounds a day that you shovel in you. I mean, it's just a payload question. No matter what golden nuggets you put in that pill or supplement, it really won't impact as dramatically as all the macro and micro nutrients that you are eating every day. And that's the problem. Like, we end up eating, think about it, every day if you eat 2 or 3 pounds, I mean, you eat quite a few days in your life. It's a lot of stuff that goes through you. And that is really impacting your health the most. And also, of course, one big element that we often don't talk about a lot today is the pollution and all the things like microplastics and heavy metal toxins that we eat and we inhale. And I mean, you are in California as well, so you know awfully well that when we get the smoke again, maybe in the next month or two, that sucks. I mean, like, we had weeks here we couldn't go outside, and basically you go outside. I mean, I didn't even realize how damaging it is. My body was telling me, like, did you go like running yesterday? I was like, yeah, I was running. It was not great weather. He was saying, like, you run an hour. It was like smoking a pack of cigarettes. I had no idea like what the impact is, and I was like, okay, I got all the air cleaning systems in the home after that, and I didn't go outside at all for weeks. But it's really everything is impacting us, and we just need to make the decisions that what could be good for us. It's just hard to know like how to start that journey.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get almost caught up in that it's hard. There's too many options. There's almost too much information out now. And so, they almost kind of give up, like, even if I'm trying to eat healthy, is the quality of food that I'm taking in good? Even if I'm drinking more water, is the quality of the water that I'm drinking good enough? And I think it just overwhelms people. And so we all kind of want somebody to come in and say, like, okay, hey, we've taken care of this for you. Here's what it is. Here's what it looks like. Here's why. I mean, we do want to know. We want people to be in charge of their health, right? We want them to, have some ownership. And I don't think we can get out of the health crisis we're in without society taking that ownership on some level of, I'm not just going to take the status quo. I'm not just going to listen to, the food pyramid that they're teaching. I'm going to think, I'm going to dig in, I'm going to listen to my body. How do I feel whenever I wake up? All of these things. Do you think that there's a Goldilocks zone on diet and nutrition where like there's almost a perfect diet for each person to live an optimal life for their goals and for their genetic history?
I think there is, and then there probably isn't in a way people think. We all think we are unique snowflakes and unicorns, and I don't think that's the case. We're pretty similar. I mean, first of all, I think we probably have about 5 or 6 different archetypes of beings, and it basically mainly depends on our background, our genetics, and maybe a bit on our microbiome, what type of food our body is able to use for fuel efficiently. As an example, I'm from northern Europe, where people were foraging not long ago, and they were eating berries and game and fish and milk. I'm measuring my glucose in real time for the last 2 years with the glucose monitors, for example. So I have a pretty good idea like on my making. And if I eat rice, corn, wheat that my ancestors never had, they never tasted that. Those all spike my glucose like crazy. I can eat ice cream and I don't spike my glucose. So it's a very different makeup than if I take my friend who's from India, whose family tree has eaten rice for a long time. Rice for him is quite okay, but then milk is completely devastating. And potatoes are really bad. My ancestors ate potatoes, for many millennia. So that's kind of, I think, one way to think about this. That we have certain traits in our body that if we know that, we could probably sequence our DNA or use a glucose sensor for maybe a couple weeks and identify what type of person you are. And by eliminating the things that are not going to be good for you, will be a big impact. Because I think the likelihood is that if your ancestors never ate something like the rice for me, no matter how much rice I eat, I will never be able to tolerate it. I always spike, and the more you spike, every spike will make you closer to be pre-diabetic and diabetic. That's just how it is.
Let's dig into that a little bit. So when you're talking about kind of spiking glucose, and I think this has been at least put out there a lot more. I know we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. Like, what do you see as happening inside the body whenever someone like yourself eats something that spikes glucose or spikes insulin in response to that? What do you see happening inside, and why does that create a negative response?
Again, I'm not the scientist. I work with really, really smart people who know the inners much better than I do. I listen to them every day. So I could go and talk about what they say, but let me rather talk about what I have learned and how I understand it myself. So I think the best analog I've been hearing on this topic is like the glucose and the whole insulin system is a bit like a guitar string, and if you drum it really hard, the string will get loosened up and you have to tighten up, and it will go out of sync. And in a way, same thing happens here. If you have these spikes happening constantly, the string will just get loose, and at a certain, it's almost like A1C is measuring how loose the string is, and over time, you need to tighten it up. And tightening up is tough, of course, because we don't really know how to do it. We don't have medication for it. Now we are seeing that companies like Elo.health with keto type of diet is actually able to tighten the string and get you back on track. But really, I think it's not like every spike is bad. I'm an endurance athlete, and for me, the ideal level of glucose while I'm doing a race, for example, would be 130, which is clearly a spike. But that's the ideal level, and I'm actually measuring real time when I do long training. So I can see with a company called Super Sapiens, I can track my glucose while racing or while doing my things. And if it dips down to 100, I know I'm going to bonk. I'm going to run out of fuel. Then I need to fuel. So I have a system that tells me when to fuel. I mean, it's kind of hack and illegal now or banned now in triathlon kind of World Cup, for example. Cycling
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did it last year. It's really cool. They named this one company specifically that is banned now by the International Cycling Federation because it gives an unfair advantage for people who can fuel at the right time. It's kind of interesting. It's just data, nothing more. It doesn't put anything in your body. But I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. And it's of course interesting the way that we measure today. You can do your blood glucose measurement on the continuous glucose monitor. You can prick your finger, take your glucose. You can take to your doctor and test hemoglobin A1C. That will give you kind of high level of long-term glucose levels. But I mean, insulin resistance is even a better measurement that you can do earlier. And if you are goes in a way that maybe 90% of Americans today are somewhat insulin resistant, meaning that they will develop type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. Maybe 50% of people have a high elevated A1C, and then maybe 30% of people already have 6 or more on the A1C. So we are slowly moving in that direction. And often we talk about how many people are diabetic today. I always talk about type 2 diabetes, not type 1 diabetes, very different. You're born with it. But it's funny that we have so many people who are on the track to get there. So that's why we know we're going to have a massive epidemic in our hand in the next 20, 30 years. More than half the people are going to be sick and on insulin if we do nothing.
And preventable.
It is preventable, absolutely, with fairly simple lifestyle changes, and that's the insane thing. And it's been so amazing to follow my friend's company, Elo.health. He talked about it first time maybe 8 years ago, and he really found this idea that you can use diet to reverse type 2 diabetes, and he made it happen now to more than 10,000 people. And what a story! I mean, we'll be one of the most impactful health companies in the world, I think.
I love it. Yeah, we had Dr. Joseph Anton on the podcast, who's the CEO of L-Nutra that does Prolon, the fasting mimicking diet. And they found a very similar thing in a lot of their research of doing multiple fasting mimicking diets throughout a year. They could reverse and cure type 2 diabetes. And so like it tells us, Elo.health, Prolon, these companies that are making an impact, like this is a curable, preventable problem that we're going to end up with if we can take those steps to get the information out there, get people to take action, inspire them. I'd love to dig into that with you a little bit. How do we actually get into the action part of it? Because as we were talking about earlier, my thought came to mind, like everyone says knowledge is power, knowledge is power. And you said it. Most people know what to do. Their mom probably told them, like, eat good, exercise, get good sleep. Like, the knowledge is not power. Knowledge that informs action is power. And so how do we get people into that? I'd love to dive into, and what y'all are doing with Elo at least gives us maybe the gamification that taps into that, that allows people another way to get into the action part. In fact, let's dive into Elo a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the company. Like what is the mission behind it? What are y'all doing over there?
Yeah, like I said, my last 20 years struggling with the healthcare topic and health of my wife, and we had drama on our first son died, and a lot of drama happened in the last 20 years that made me who I am. And sometimes at the time when these things happen, it's really traumatic, and it feels that life is an ending, and you are at the end of the tunnel, and there's no light. But in the end, all the struggles, adversity we have in our life, we need to be, and we can turn often into our advantage. And for me, it really made it easy for me to work on things that I really do care about deeply. And we are all, everything we feel and we experience is somehow hormonal. So I also kind of think that nothing is really real. I could probably inject you with some hormones and you would cry now, or you would be the ecstatic person ever. So in a way, nothing is really real. So we are kind of also always fooling us to believe that we have passion or something, or we really care about something. But it kind of becomes real if you start believing in something. So the mind is driver always. If you believe in something, it can happen, and somehow it just goes that way. It's kind of insane. But anyway, I got into the healthcare like 12 years ago, built companies, and it's been super rewarding. I learned a lot. I was a complete outsider. I came from Europe, from the socialist medicine system to the US, and 10 years later, I've been helping to write laws that are now defining how do we access doctors and stuff like that. And I built a company that's impacting 200 million people a year when they look for doctors, Quest Analytics and Better Doctor. So I'm pretty happy about that. But now I can finally work on the other topic that I've been super passionate about. So the first one was finding doctors and finding care, accessing the right healthcare. Big problem, like I said. I was very overwhelmed myself when I came to the US and had to find right doctors. But now the second one is like, how do we use the food as medicine to help us heal our body without the need of taking medication? Or what if we could maybe prevent us getting sick in the first place? Because the healthcare system, we spend 98% of the money on treating people when they are sick. We spend 2% or 2.6% today on preventing. That's completely ass backward. It should be like 30 and 70. And at Elo, we are trying to invent a way to take this information and give it to people in a way they can make the right decision. It's all about transparency. It's all about kind of going through all this mess of data and science and blocks and everything to find what makes sense. And the whole ethos we've been kind of trying to build, and we are early, but the whole idea is that a lot of companies are now starting to do and answer the question, so what? So what you have A1C high? So what you have a low sleep numbers? So what if you don't take this? Like, some people are doing that pretty well. Elo is only focusing on the then what question. Exactly like you said it. What do I do now? And my hope is to build a company that you could open the Elo app and it will tell you what should you eat right today. to stay at your optimal health and avoid illness or even reverse your illness. And of course, not just telling you that, go and cook like a beautiful food, but, click a button and you're going to get the food, or you have the food ready in your fridge, or you have supplementation that can help you on that very moment. That's what we are trying to do and make it as personal as possible. Like I said, we are not snowflakes, but most of us are eating the wrong food per se. So Elo's concept is called smart nutrition, and smart nutrition means the nutrition we provide you is personal, made for you, and based on who you are, your makeup, your biomarker data, your biometric data, whatever it is. It is also precise, it's grounded in real science. We have written a letter inside the company that we will not use stuff that is not unproven by science. There's so much noise out there. Yeah. We try to only lean on the real science. And lastly, it's also precise. And the preciseness really is also meaning that, it really can actually have an impact on you. And we show you the data before and after, so you can believe in it. And what we try to add now into this thing that is maybe unique for most people, we are trying to also make it proactive. Proactive means that we build AI models that are learning about you. So it doesn't just mean that we hope that, if you are with Elo for a year, the system and the nutrition gets better for your health. But we are also hoping we can make it to taste better and be more fun and so forth. That's kind of the gamification element. Because the thing is that, how many times anyone will ask you after you ate a lunch or dinner, was it good? Was it too salty? Was it too big? Did you like the broccoli? Nobody ever asks you that. We will do that. We will ask you the feedback loop, and I hope we can make it taste better and be more optimal for you, because food is important. It's our heritage, culture. It's who we are. And I mean, if I give you the wrong food or the bland food, bad tasting food, I mean, it's not going to fly. It has to be great. Yeah. So that's Elo, like a macro view. And the first product we have now been in the market for about 2 years is we have one of the first, if not the first company who took the concept of taking your blood biomarkers at home, collecting your wearable device data, your sleep, recovery, weight and others, doing a health questionnaire, and then using AI to deliver you custom supplements in a daily package with your name on, and throwing also into mix a dietitian who works with every member one-on-one to guide them through why they get what you get, what does the data mean, and what else can they do in behavioral change land. Can they change the breakfast? Can they change the pattern of, doing maybe intermittent fasting? Can they maybe do long-term fasting with Prolon, which is an amazing product. I use it every quarter.
Yeah, me too. My family as well. Let's dig into that a little bit. So let's start with the testing stuff that informs some of the decision making. Y'all run quite a few biomarkers, correct?
I mean, we would love to run all, but there's a limitation today in our ability, as there's no scientific way today to collect a lot of blood from you at home, and we need quite a bit of blood to be able to test certain biomarkers. So we have the classic finger prick test today. So you prick a finger, you bleed 6-7 drops of blood, and then we test that in a lab. We can do 12 biomarkers today. We hope to do a lot more in the future, but science is still not fully approved, and as we all know, there's a big debacle with Theranos, so that slowed down the innovation in the space a lot, and they were silly to do what they did. But at the same time, there's a lot of great innovation happening, and because of COVID, the whole market of testing is moving from the lab into home collection to lab, and in a moment also testing at home, like you do COVID testing today. So what we test is lipid panel. We do your cholesterols, your HDL, LDL, triglycerides, and the ratios. We also look at your vitamin D, vitamin B12, giving you an idea of that level. We look at your ferritin. We also take your homocysteine, which is a pretty good marker for heart inflammation. And I think we will also likely add also hormones and more minerals, vitamins going forward once the science gets a bit more robust and we are able to collect the blood maybe in a better way than from your finger.
Yeah, would that be kind of what the next step is like? Hey, right now we're kind of limited on what data we can get, so let's get as much as we can. But in the future, let's get the perfect data. Let's get, if we're looking at lipids, let's do the LP little a. Let's do lipoproteins. If we're looking at minerals and nutrients, let's get the big 8 to 10 that really give us an idea of hormone function and all that stuff. Is that kind of what that next step would be?
Yeah, I think, and it might be more that we focus on, because with the current data, we get so much information about the person already that even we are a little bit overwhelmed at times. Because we work with Elo.health, and with Apple device only. So today you can connect your Elo.health to Elo, and some people connect all the lab data from the last 10 years. So we get all the other stuff that people might have tested. So it becomes a bit overwhelming because, as a practitioner, you know that more data is not always better. You have to focus. So I think how we are thinking about this when we go forward, and we have seen now with thousands of people that we come in. What does the data look like? What is the key area of improvement they have? Metabolic health? Could it be heart health? Is it the weight? Finding that one area to focus on, and then maybe test deeper in that area. And of course, when we go more into food type of products, we of course have to do something with food sensitivity. That's a really interesting area that 99.9% of people have never been tested. And we've been testing a lot of people to test it. And they are not perfect test. The test on the blood is not perfect today. But most people have surprising findings that will change the way how they eat. And the only reason why we are doing so much of this testing in the beginning is that I fundamentally believe that there's no way of improving anything if you don't measure it. And we have no measurements at all in the space of nutrition. And I think you have a great field, because pain is maybe even more difficult one to measure, because we feel pain so differently. My pain tolerance might be high. I'm not saying it's high, but it might be high. And somebody else is very low. And we say I'm at 2, and other person is at 9, and we have the same amount of pain. Right. So how do you know that as a practitioner? But for me, it has been about, okay, can we do measurements that are better than in the past? And I've been saying a lot of people, and I love when people come back to me and tell the same thing. They're like, wow, you built a system that is so much better than the life I had before. This is a person who had done supplements for 10 years, 20 years, and they eat pills every day. And then they came to Elo and they actually found out what they need, and we told them what they should not eat. So we have a lot of people who come in and they have like way too high B vitamins because they eat B vitamins like candy. Many people come in and they have some issues that they had no idea. Like they have a huge issue with iron. A lot of women who come in, they have a low iron, and it's tough to get the iron levels up. And we help them holistically to how to do that. And if you get your iron level up to normal level, you feel much more energetic. You feel so much better. So it's not a small tweak, but a big impact.
Yeah.
And just this idea that you test every quarter has been a super powerful factor for people to start collecting data. And the point is, if you measure, like I have done now for many years on all these different devices, you by default will start living healthier life because you think about that more. That's the impact of the Oura Ring and the Apple Watch and the Whoop and the glucose sensors and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also, where this came on my plate was, when we started improving someone's pain, there's a chemical aspect, there's a physical aspect, but there's also a chemical aspect to pain. There's a mental, emotional aspect. But when we started looking at, if I can fix all the physical stuff, but if the chemical stuff's not there, we're spinning our wheels. So we had to start looking at a deeper way of checking that. And I think it's hard for people, sometimes it's slow to change, like you said, especially with iron. Like we see the same thing. Women will come in, iron levels are not where they need to be, thyroid function not where they need to be, metabolism not where it needs to be because of that. And you can do all the right stuff physically, but unless you fix that chemical dysfunction, you're going to still be pushing the boulder uphill. And so how far into it do you go before you say this is working or not working is a hard question to answer if you're doing it based on how you feel. Like if I improved 20% over 6 months, a lot of people, if it's just left to me, I'm like, maybe do I feel better? Do I not? This isn't working. I'm going to stop. When in all actuality, hey, look, here's the data. Here's how much it's improved. Actually, don't stop. Actually, let's turn it up a notch. You're on the right path. We just need to speed it up a little bit. Or, no, it's not working. We need to change the delivery system of that supplement, of that health activity, whatever it might be. So if we're not collecting that data, I think we're running blind. How do we know if the intervention we're doing is working or not? And if we should stick with it? It might take 2 years to change it, but we're on the right path. And the alternative is I'm not making any progress or I'm not improving. So I love that. I mean, this is why I wanted to talk to you. I love this future of what we can do and measure and start helping people kind of actually get the metrics around what their health is. One of the questions that jumps out to me whenever you're explaining, which I'll do, is how much is the kind of data tied to what their goals are?
Goals are really important. We start the program for everybody by defining what is the number one health goal. And most common feedback we are getting from people and our members is that, why can't I pick multiple? And I'm very adamant about pick one, because you can't fix everything at once. Pick one area that you focus on. And then what we also do, we mandate everybody to write down a sentence of the health goal. Write it down. These things work, and I tend to read them every week when we have new people coming up, and if there's hundreds of people, and I'm like teary-eyed when I read these, because they are very meaningful. They are not about I want to look good in the summer when I go to the beach, but they are more like I want to go hike with my granddaughter the Appalachian Trail like I did with my grandfather. And those are the things that really matter to people. I mean, and I thought about that myself a lot, and I think in the end you are living for the next generation, and you're living for the you're trying to leave the place better conditioned than you inherited it. And those are kind of coming up as feedback. So goals are key, because I can give you measurement tools, I can give you data, I can even give you coaching, but there's no way I can give you motivation. You need to have the motivation inside you. Otherwise, none of these things will work. Nobody else can be there for you. And we see that when we have kids, for example, and we put them to play a sport they don't like. Some of them have, even a lot of ability, but you see it quickly that, it's not something that they really like to do. They do it because of the parents, they do it because of the friends or whatnot. And it would be awesome to be able to find out at young age what you want to do in your life. Because that's maybe the most important factor. Like if we would know what we want, why we are here, a little bit even, we're gonna be better than almost anyone else. Because most people are just wandering around, not knowing why they're here, what they're trying to do, why they do what they do.
Yep. It's hard. I think how do we find that in a lot of cases? My family was healthcare. Like my grandfather would treat patients while he had a bratty little grandkid nipping at his heels. I'm like, I don't know how he had the ability to stay focused with that. But so it was like, it was kind of, built into us that you could see how impacting another person's life was, gave you almost more than you gave them in a lot of ways. The more you have that, the more you can be full force ahead and really make an impact and, start changing lives. And the more lives we change, we talk about it in my practice, like, it sounds grandiose to say we're changing the world, but if you change one person's health, who that energy that they now have allows them to contribute to the world, which impacts another person and allows them, like how many amazing inventions or impacts or discoveries were not discovered because somebody was unhealthy. They didn't have the energy or motivation to do it. Like you really do change the world as you give those people the health and the energy and the focus to go after what they want or what they believe in. And we talk about like Tesla. The only way to do that what Tesla did for the car is there was a lot of people who tried to make electric cars, but they came in and they made it fun. They made it exciting. You see it and you're like, this looks amazing. That looks like a sports car. I wanted a sports car anyway. What they started doing after that was they made it better, and then they started making it cheaper. So it's the equivalent. Is Elo the Tesla of diet and nutrition at some point?
I think I use that analog a lot myself, because it's really easy for people to understand the concept that electric engine is a much older innovation than the combustion one, 100-year older. And most of the trolleys in San Francisco and LA were electric trolleys, or the cable cars, whatever, before we got a different way of doing it. And it's interesting that Elon Musk and Tesla really created a better car, not a better electric car, and that made it big. And I think everybody was ready to jump already, but he and they showed what is possible. And now it's interesting that in the last 5 years, every car company went from only building combustion engine cars to building electric cars. And if you now have a line of cars today that are only gas cars, you're going to be out of business completely as a company. And that's a great example. And if you think about the health and nutrition, so one topic I've been speaking a lot in different conferences and elsewhere, because I was in the mobile phones at Nokia when it was invented, and I saw kind of the first smartphone team built the N95, the first Nokia smartphone with the first ever video camera, first ever email, all these things. And it completely changed the world in a way how people used it. Of course, in the end, then Apple and Android and Google and Samsung and others improved it further, and they took the market over. But I was there and seeing this happen. I was in the team building the first games in 90s on mobile. I mean, nobody even knew what it could be. And then we had like 100 people in a room, and now there are hundreds of millions of people, building apps. I mean, it just became this insanely big, changed the world completely. We spend 5 hours a day today on the phone, and we didn't do that just 20 years ago. I don't know what we did. Maybe we read stories to kids and baked and had fun and had more sex, but whatever. So we changed our life completely. So it can happen, but this idea of innovation coming to market is, we call it innovation S-curve. So S-curve in a way that everything goes very slowly. Then you have the chasm when things speed up, and then you plateau again. I don't know, this is not topic today, but just briefly to kind of explain the point why it's important. Think about industries like travel. It moved into the virtual digital cloud many years ago. There is no retail high street location you can go and buy trips. You used to go to travel agent. There were millions of people working in these offices selling you trips and making phone calls. All those people are unemployed now. Banks, we had every place at a branch before. Millions and millions of people are unemployed because they worked in a branch of bank. It's not online. And what's now, and of course not to even talk about media, 20 years ago none of the media companies that were big are not even around today. Maybe Disney is the only one who is still thriving. And this will happen now in automotive. We saw in the last 5 years electric cars come in. We saw Uber, Lyft and others take over taxis. And we're going to have self-driving cars happening in the next 5 years. And they are going to be robo-taxis. My car could be making money for me right now on the streets. How cool is that? Yeah. I mean, I go back home and the car brought me $10,000 of money. I mean, that's pretty cool. Will happen soon. And then healthcare and nutrition and all these things, they are just in the beginning of the chasm. It will happen here as well. So the world, what we're going to see in the next 15 years, will look completely different as the travel, as the media, as the banking, as the automotive will start to look now. And we forget what it was like before when you had to go to travel agent. So that world, what I'm really hopeful about, and I'm trying to build the company for. But you never know how it will happen exactly. You don't know when it will happen. So you have to put your chips on the table, and you have to be nimble and hope that things go as you think they would. But if you want to build a great company in any field today, you have to build a great product. You have to make the product to make people's lives 10 times better than it was before. If you can do that, you can always succeed.
Yeah, the other question that comes to mind as you kind of go through that is like the data collection that Elo will have access to can, it becomes this like positive feedback loop, right? The more people who are using it and you see, the interventions and the outcome, the more data you can get, so the interventions become better. So, how much will be dedicated towards like the research part of that? Because, just having that information, if that was the only purpose of it, is insanely valuable. So we know if my blood levels are here and I do this intervention, 85% of people who did that ended up here. That's exciting to me.
you got it. I mean, you work in the field and you understand the scientific investigation principle. So that's kind of the core idea why we do now what we do. So let me explain briefly how we started to look at this. And we are very beginning. We haven't published anything yet. I hope we will publish a lot more in the coming years. So we had our science team spend the first 2 years of the company, before we even kind of got out to the market. They went through all the different scientific literature on all the different active ingredients we have in food and nutrition and supplements and different things. We found about 100 different active ingredients, active compounds. Think about like a C vitamin, or it could be iron, or it could be magnesium, or like whatever these base items of micronutrients, for example. So we took all the science we have today in the planet, and we found about 4,000 human peer-reviewed researches. There's plenty more for mice and animals and kind of like these studies where you have a in vitro thing. But these are really like human studies. Only 4,000 or 5,000, not that many. So we took all those things in. We read all of them. We tagged all of them. We translated all of the they were done in Europe or China or US, different numbers like millimoles or milliliters or whatever. So we normalized them all. And that became the corpus or the basic layer of the algorithm for Elo. So we take and then we pair those studies into all the different biomarkers we are measuring today. Think about sleep, recovery, HRV, weight, all these biomarkers that we have today. We talked about earlier, the 12. So we match those together. So there are about 80 different biomarkers there today, and then we have 5,000 research papers and about 100 different compounds. That's the Elo box. And now, when you go to the Elo app, for example, you can see your biomarker results, and you can click your HDL. You're going to see all the research papers that are defining how much of, let's say, omega-3 you should be getting because of your results. And we are pairing you based on your ethnicity, your age, gender, the conditions you have, and the biomarkers into that box. And for me, for example, I have a bit elevated LDL. It's a family problem. So I'm now linked into 38 different studies out of the 5,000 as me, and I'm now N of 1 in the Elo data sample, and we are testing me and other people like me. We are testing us and our impact. Are we seeing the same impact in our health as we saw on the studies? And our N is now, in this case, LDL, maybe 200, 300, 400 people. And the studies that were done were 30 people. So we might have 10-fold more people already in our study. And we are now invalidating and validating the papers. We are actually stack ranking them now again based on the real world evidence we are getting. So, I mean, this is what makes me excited, because it's an insane scientific tool that we are creating. And think about when we pour 50,000 people into this over the coming years. I mean, you actually have new science, because the idea is that first we have an algorithm. The second layer we already implemented is the dietitians at Elo, who are looking at every plan. They talk to people face to face like this. So they learn a lot more, and then they tweak the plan. So we took now the dietitian tweaks, thousands of them, and we make them part of the algorithm. We use the random forest algorithms to build that in. And the third layer that we're going to go out later is going to be the real outcomes. We're going to take the real world outcomes and put them on top of all this stuff and, stir the pot. And then it becomes something new. And that's what I really want to see. So we could find new compounds. And the fundamental problem today in the medicine science is that everything is about one molecule to one condition. Like we need to find this narrow threads of impact. What we say at Elo, because we are using nutrition, we don't need to be bound by FDA in the same rigor. We can give you all the stuff in nutrition that is able to impact you. We cannot give you the kitchen sink. And we're going to see if you improve. If you do, we high five you. And then later we can then unravel it and think about what was the big impact. It might have been, the plant sterols or the omega-3, or it could be something else, maybe the magnesium, whatever. And then we find out, how it works. But that's the kind of the exciting thing that, you have a much faster loop of innovation and evolution than you would have in a clinical trial where you need to spend like 5 years in vitro and then go humans.
How many people do y'all have using it right now, Ari?
We have a bit over 1,000 people now in the platform, and we were in a closed beta for a year with 150 people. We opened this up in February, and we're very slowly growing because operating this is not easy. So we are now in the process of adding the second and third product, and we are starting to scale. So we're going to go to 10,000 people end of next year. But we still want to keep it small.
What's the cost? If somebody's looking at doing it?
Supplements today, you can sign up on the website Elo.health for the program where you get blood biomarker testing, you get the coaching from the dietitian, and you get monthly delivery of supplements that are made for you. $99 a month for the whole package.
And then they pay for whatever supplements are right for them.
Included, all included in one price.
Oh wow! For $99 a month.
Yep.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Ari, one of the last questions, we could go for hours. I'm so excited about this. This is whenever I look at the future of healthcare, of medicine, of pain treatment, of nutrition, this is what I see where we're marrying up intervention with testing, with advanced wearables. You talk about smart nutrition, that's what I see in the next 2 decades. I think is probably a realistic time frame, but it's so exciting because for all the reasons that you just said, the impact you can have, the data that we can get, real world actionable information. It's extremely exciting to me, but so we could go for hours. But so one of the last questions we ask all our guests are, if you could give people one thing that they could do today to improve their health, what would that be?
I'm being a big believer in one company for a decade. I was so lucky to be one of the early investors in the Aura, the ring, and I've been wearing it now for 9 years. And I think recovery and sleep is always underappreciated. And we live in a society, I think we are getting better at it, but this classic New York stockbroker, wake up at 5 a.m. to go run in dark, slushy winter. Not a good idea. So you need to sleep enough. And the one thing that makes a big impact, I think scientifically the only big impact you can do for your recovery and sleep is to go sleep earlier. If you can go sleep between 10:30 and 11 every night, I think you're going to give yourself maybe 2 or 3 more years.
I love it. I love it. All right, where can people find out more? You mentioned Elo.health. Is that correct? Elo.health.
Yep, Elo.health is the website, and today the supplement product is out in every state except New York. We can't do blood testing in New York yet. We hope to get it out by end of the year. There's a very rigorous process to get any type of lab testing that is done at home to be live there. And we have another product coming out in the coming days now, and I couldn't be more excited. It's we call it Smart Protein. It basically is the same concept that we talked about earlier on the supplements, but we are taking your wearable device data. You might have your Apple Watch, or you have your Peloton, or your Tonal, or Strava, whatever you use. We can take the workout data, and we are designing a custom protein blend for you, made for you by hand. And we send it to you every month, and it will update automatically every month after your workouts come in. And the cool thing we added there that I'm super excited, and I built games for a long time in my past. I spent about a decade building games. We wanted to gamify this. And one thing that we heard from a lot of people is that I don't really know how much protein I need, or do I need protein? So we built a system now that you can open the Elo app, and after workout, it will tell you exactly how much protein you need after exercise in real time. And that's pretty cool. And we've been testing for a year, and I'm so excited to get it out to market. And you don't need to do blood tests for the protein. It will be available in every part of the country in the next coming weeks.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. What about social? Y'all have a social media presence?
Yeah, we are Elo.health on Instagram, every other social as well. Follow us, and if you are interested about this, give it a try. I mean, I think we are giving still a moment more an offer for free biomarker tests to start a program. We don't have that many left, but I think we have still some left. That if you go to the website, you can find it out, and it's pretty cool because I really truly believe in this concept, but we are early, so we are all about working with our members to improve it. So we listen to every member who comes in, and I have an idea what we want to do next, but I'm asking our members to guide us through, give us the ideas, what do we want to build next? Do you guys want to have meals? What type of meals? Help us, and we'll get it out. I mean, there's a lot of products we're going to build in the next year, but I want to get the right roadmap, the right things people really want.
I love it, man. As y'all get further along, we'll have to do another one of these and dive into some of the stuff that y'all have learned, man. I really appreciate the conversation. Very enlightening. Everyone, check out Elo. As y'all can hear, I'm extremely excited about the future of this, and keep doing what you do, man. Y'all are gonna have such a big impact on health, people, their energy in the world at large, man. Thank you so much for coming on, Ari.
Thanks for a great discussion.